There's obviously a sense of anxiety looming over the population. The Taliban had announced that their first phase did not include pushing for provincial centers, which would necessarily mean that they will start doing so. In their second phase, on the other end, they've said that they will not take Kabul by force, which might actually cause a movement of the population towards Kabul, looking at the situation on hand. It looks like the Taliban will eventually cut off Kabul's supply routes to choke out the government. And that would mean a huge humanitarian crisis where a lot of the population ends up being centered in Kabul with nowhere else to go. I think the path for negotiations would always be open. That is a diplomatic approach from the Taliban's end. The idea that if they eventually end up pushing the government to an extent against the wall, where elements from within Afghanistan are willing to negotiate a handover of power to the Taliban, for that as well, they will keep the negotiation channel open. The other reason is they want to keep appeasing the West to show that they had a willingness to negotiate politically with regards to avoiding sanctions and basic international scrutiny. So the hope is that if there's a handover of power done to the Taliban, that way they'll have some legitimate way into power. It's quite unfortunate what we saw as a joint declaration by the end of the two-day conference. The first 3 points of accelerating talks, continued high-level talks, and instructing teams to speed up talks all sound like trying to meet a word count for an essay. I think that there was no actual idea of what they could have agreed upon. No side knew what they were willing to compromise on. There does seem to be an absence of a roadmap and a plan on both ends, on both the Taliban leadership and then the Afghan Republic. I think this was just giving into outside pressure from the Taliban side, especially. It looks like it was an appeasement step to show the West that they were willing to find a political settlement. However, the Afghan Republic wasn't willing to budge on their stances. The idea is there were even rumors of the Taliban having said that these weren't negotiation talks, they were surrender talks, which the Taliban later denied officially. But the mood within the meeting and the talks seemed to be as such, based on battleground realities. Conflict in the world eventually has a way to get to a reconciliation point. It just has to reach a mutually hurting stalemate. The idea is, unless both parties realize that they cannot advance their gains without major costs, they will keep pushing for the ultimate and total victory, which is what we see on the battleground within Afghanistan right now, where both sides are hoping to get an upper hand, and they're currently haven't reached a part of a stalemate. And again, international pressure plays an important role. Once the international community makes up its mind about the negotiation talks as to whether to give up on them, only then will we actually see pressure and hurt applied to the Taliban specifically to honestly negotiate and work towards a peaceful settlement.